Hey guys, Super Praetorian here, and welcome to Let's Play Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. Yes, the voice was partially necessary. This is by far probably my favorite Castlevania game of all time. And we're going to be starting off fresh. Completely fresh. I even wiped the battery on this. Probably shouldn't have, considering I had good 100% save files completed, but whatever. Like I said, this is probably my favorite Castlevania game to date, so I'm kind of looking forward to this. I was having weird issues with desync. You could probably have seen in the intro video there how it kind of got a little choppy at points. I do apologize for that. There's not much I can do. It's a fault of the emulator. If I had the software, not the software, if I had the hardware to record for my physical copy, believe me, I would. But I don't have the money to drop on that. Anyway, let's get this started. I spelled that right? Yes, I did. And now for rarity, voice-acted cutscene intro. Yes.
Returning to life time and again since the ancient Middle Ages, the evil Lord Dracula has driven people to terror. Each time Dracula returned from the dead, the Belmont clan fought him in the shadows, wielding the Holy Whip. Through their efforts, humanity avoided the darkness, securing prosperity. But early in the 19th century, having lost their ability to resist the darkness, those in positions of power at the time began to search for new ways to counter Dracula. Our organization, Ecclesia, was born then as one of those countermeasures. Many organizations were established with the same goal, and day after day, they conducted their studies diligently. But each was dissolved when they failed to produce satisfactory results. But that was when Barlow, the leader of Ecclesia, finally made a surprising breakthrough that could stand up against Dracula.
That was quite the info dump, wasn't it? Anyway, as it said there, this game takes place in... It's before World War II. I believe it's before World War I as well, so I think it's the late 1800s. I believe in the canon storyline, canon kind of really gets messed up after a point. Yeah. But I believe in the canon storyline, so I don't want to say canon. The storyline before Lords of Shadow shifted things up, the last Belmont to hold the whip was, I believe, Richter Belmont in Rondo of Blood / Symphony of the Night. Since then, nobody's been holding on to the vampire killer. Prophecy that it's not to be used again until the year 1999 when the greatest vampire hunter will kill Dracula. Hey, that sounds a lot like Julius' story, doesn't it? Yeah, it totally is. But regardless, just because they can't use the vampire killer doesn't mean that Dracula's still not kind of messing things up in the meanwhile. That's where Ecclesia comes in. Ecclesia was one of many organizations, as explained, meant to try to deal with Dracula. And the guildmaster, Barlow, had discovered a method. A method which is probably this thing called Dominus that was in those brackets and everything. Also, another reason why this game is probably one of my favorite out of all the Castlevanias is that it holds my second and third favorite characters in Castlevania. We're actually looking at both of them right now. And I haven't decided which is my second and which is my third. But the two characters here, we have Albus, who is one member of Ecclesia, who is rather ticked off that he apparently was not chosen to be used for Dominus, but yeah, that's not going to bite us in the butt later, not at all. And the other character, nice spell by the way, is Shinoa. And Shinoa is our player character. Also, the portraits in this are kind of interesting. Not nearly as silly as the portraits in the Sorrow games. But that's besides the point. Anyway, let's kind of get right into things. Or rather, we would. There's a decent bit of talky and a bit of intro stuff before we actually have our first anything. It's nothing on the lines of Twilight Princess. Oh hey, you get to play for 2-3 hours until you get to the first dungeon. Oh lord. It is, however, not like Symphony of the Night where you're instantly in the first area. So, There is that downside. Also, doors. Doors we cannot use. I think this is one of the only times where we see doors that we cannot actually use. This, however, is a fancy door. Fancy door! Nice dramatic lightning, Albus. Nice dramatic lightning. Albus... I like Albus for a multitude of reasons. We won't get into many of them until later. For starters now, here is Barlow. The third and last member, as far as you can tell in-game, of Ecclesia. Now, as far as I can tell, there are likely more, but you don't see any more. You only see Albus, Shinoa, and Barlow. So as far as I'm concerned, they're the only 3 members of Ecclesia, even though there is mention at points of others, but yada yada yada. Anyway, this here is... I've been completely ignoring the story as I've been talking about this. This here is Barlow getting Shinoa prepared to use Dominus, a glyph which is a weapon used to defeat Dracula. Now, glyphs are made up of the main part of the storyline, or main part of the game, how this all works. I probably won't get too far into what glyphs are, how glyphs work. Oh, do I cover it then, or do I wait? I may wait a little bit. I don't get too far into it until later. Please note that there are 3 glyphs. That is important. I'll get into more why 3 glyphs is important later. As for now, something happened. Doing some ritual to save the world, and something happened. Of course, we can't win the game at like 5 minutes in. That would have been too easy. And I do kind of like a little plot point here with Shinoa. Not so much that I like it, it can be kind of cliched, but they handled it better than most, and I do like that. And Albus, it doesn't matter if he quite lied about this, because you kind of just ruined everything for everyone. But yeah, I'm actually curious to how Albus is making the books float around him there, because to my knowledge, Albus, I didn't think Albus had explicit magic powers to any degree. Shinoa does. Barlow does. I know Albus does have a nice little trick, and we'll be seeing a taste of it shortly, but I wasn't aware that he had, like, telekinesis of a sort. Telekinesis would be useful to a degree. But regardless, he just magicked the books into his hand. Somehow. Yep. Not completely sure of that, but it doesn't matter. Now, the story I've been talking over is fairly apparent. Albus interrupted the ritual to make it so that Shinoa could defeat Dracula, so that he could take Dominus because he was promised that he would be the one to use it, and he's not being allowed to use it. Kind of messed things up, just a little bit. But he has a gun. This is a badass gun. That is probably one of my favorite abilities in the game. And I wish we didn't get it so late. Spoilers! That's an ability we'll get later in the game. I really do like that ability. I really do like that ability. Several weeks. Looks like whatever happened really took it out of Shinoa. And it did. It might seem strange here. It's like Shinoa probably had to have been one of the best trained members of Ecclesia. 3 members. To be able to use Dominus. And then, like, weeks of training? Why would that be? Well, a major plot point, and they're going to get more into it shortly, and since this is still the beginning of the game, we're like 10 minutes in, I don't feel bad spoiling it. Shinoa has amnesia. And I'm completely talking over glyphs here. I will talk about glyphs more on my own time in probably the next video, so I'm going to ignore this. But Shinoa has amnesia. And this isn't your little campy, oh, you're hit over the head, you kind of forgot who people are, where you live, etc., etc. Still same personality, all that stuff. It's still basically you just forgot stuff. No. Shinoa is a complete blank slate. No personality, no memories, she remembers nothing. In a way, there are a lot of, say, military commanders who would love someone like this. Shinoa is powerful, and she has no experiences, so they can mold her into whatever they wanted. I'll leave that to be for now. It's just, I like it so much because there's just so much easy amnesia. You're bonked over the head, you remember when you get bonked over the head later. Not with this. Shinoa forgets everything, complete blank slate, and she doesn't remember anything through the rest of the game. She is just reforging her memories anew. Or not reforging her memories, she's reforging her experiences anew. As far as she is concerned or knows, like this, she's only been around for a few weeks. That's all she knows. Nothing beforehand. Anyway, glyph. We can equip a glyph. I'm going to equip it twice. I'm still going to wait a little bit to get more into glyphs, but actually I can get to glyphs now, I think. Glyphs are your main attacking system in the game. In the Sorrow games, you had a weapon and then your bullet soul and the other souls as well. Not so in the case here. In this, you have no weapons, no souls, etc. It's just glyphs. So glyphs will replace your weapons. Glyphs will replace your souls. Or souls, your spells. Glyphs will replace your abilities. Stuff like that. And you have 3 glyph slots. 2 on your arms and 1 on your back. If you looked in the menu, which I can bring back up shortly, after Barlow is talking about how Shinoa apparently still has her muscle memory, which is good. And he's also mentioning a glyph union. I'm going to get a bit more into that shortly. And by shortly, I mean right now. So you have your normal attacks like that, and if you hold up and press the button, you do a more powerful attack known as a glyph union. Glyph unions use hearts. Your normal attacks only use mana. That also makes one of the attributes particularly more troublesome in this game versus other Castlevania games, but that's beside the point. But yes, there are 3 glyph slots. 2 for your shoulders. You can also come over to this, duck down, and get hearts back. But yes, 2 glyphs for your shoulders, and a 3rd for your back. If we look at the menu, we see them here. We don't actually have any back souls, which are used with R, so we'll get into that later. So for now, Barlow, sure, let's go to the next room. Another interesting thing about this game is despite you starting off with true amnesia and complete bag of spilling because of it, you actually start with several abilities that most Castlevania protagonists do not have. You can backdash and you can slide. You can't dropkick though. Dropkicking would allow you to sequence break. So I can understand why they don't allow you to dropkick, but it's kind of irritating. But yes, Barlow will give us a little crash course in fighting by letting us fight with skeletons. Now then, one thing I haven't mentioned yet, this is actually one of the harder Metroidvania Castlevania games. As such, you will see me use a lot of tricks backdashing. I'll probably switch my weapon, my glyphs around often enough to make things easier for me, abuse elemental weaknesses, the whole 9 yards. The whole 9 yards. But yes, that is more or less taken care of for this, so now Barlow will get to explain our mission, because, well, our mission is to defeat Dracula, but the tool with which to defeat Dracula was stolen. So we're probably going to have to go after Albus. That's pretty much what this entire cutscene is going on about. Also the fact that Shinoa remembers nothing other than seeing a figure there when she lost her memories before she passed out. But yeah, it's just essentially that Shinoa knows nothing of him, which is kind of strange because Shinoa and Albus were quite close beforehand. But I digress. Glyphs themselves. Hearts are only used for glyph unions. Glyph unions are dependent on what glyphs you have equipped. Since I have 2 of the rapier glyphs equipped, left and right arm, you have the more powerful rapier shot. If you have glyphs that do not match for whatever reason, you get kind of a general puff of air that does damage. For the most part, I don't care for that. I will try to save glyph unions for specific combinations. And you're typically in the clear if you use 2 glyphs that match. I think, if not every spell, almost every spell will have a glyph union if you use 2 glyphs that match. There are a handful that have glyphs that match, or that mix if you just use them random, like Fire and Ice, I believe, will do a glyph union. Maybe it's Light and Dark. something to that effect. It more or less makes sense how it works. But we'll get into that later. There are a lot of glyphs to get in this game. There is a lot of stuff in general. And if I had to say one more thing on this game, there is only one thing I really do not like as the game as a whole. Like, there's a few parts that can get a little annoying. Nothing that's really game-breaking or, like, deal-breaking for me. There is one boss fight I despise. And I will fight that boss. I will delay fighting that boss as long as I can. And luckily, he is not until, like, the end of the game. So I can delay a rather long time. But I'm going to make a note of that boss when I get there. Freaking hate that boss. But the game is rather interesting, and portraits aside, granted I've made fun of the portraits in every Castlevania game, portraits aside, I think the game looks rather good. So, that's pretty much all I have to say on the matter. As for now, though, so much talking. At least I managed to cover a lot of stuff by not paying attention to what they're talking about, but giving you guys plenty of time to read. I'd say that means I have no clue what they're talking about, but I've played this game enough times that I know. Also, remember these doors we're going to go through? It's because they need this orange outline thing. And if we come over here, we will see something rather important. A save point. Yes, I would like to save the game. Data has been saved. Awesome. Now then, one other complaint that many people have with this game that I'm used to, I don't mind it too much. It's essentially stage-based. We can go into this area here, the monastery, and it is a complete stage. It is not connected to any other areas. It just has an entrance. You go in, you do stuff, you come out. That is one problem people have with this, but I can overlook it. Regardless, I'm going to save the monastery for next time. We've gone through all the intro talky nonsense, and as for now, I'm just going to go sit here. Also, the glyphs, how there's one for her back, that's the reason why she's wearing a backless shirt. It's like a corset and a battle dress, I think. I don't actually know exactly the names of what she's wearing, but I do kind of... It's interesting. They went through a decent bit of design with her. One thing I don't like about her sprite, though it's nice and detailed, is that it's not ambidextrous. Like, it's the same sprite for left and right, just flipped. Like, I'm pressing the button to attack with the X button to attack with a particular glyph. Turn around. She's using a different arm, but it's still the one that comes out in front of you facing the audience. I don't really like that, so, but what you gonna do? What you gonna do? I'm sure there were sprite limitations, or people just weren't being paid enough. One of the two. Regardless, that's been enough for this episode, so until next time, guys, this has been Silverthorn. Let's play Castlevania Order of Ecclesia. Later! Whoop, 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 whoop.